Welcome to the Kegel Show. My name is Don Agent, and with me today is Rick Wiltse, one of our Kegel Training Center lead coaches. Thanks for coming out, Rick.
Thanks, my pleasure to be here.
Rick, you've been with Kegel for 8 years.
Correct.
But I'm under the impression you've been in bowling quite a bit longer. When did you start in bowling?
Well, I bowled my first game when I was 8 years old. My grandfather took me bowling at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. Dayton is where I was born. My mom and dad bowled, and I bowled in family tournaments with them when I was a kid. So I had a connection with bowling with my family from a very young age. At age 15, I became a coach.
Wow.
Yeah. At that time, you had to be an adult to be a coach, but my proprietor liked me, and I was a good player, and I begged him to let me in the coaching course, and he got me in. And my first two coaches were PBA Hall of Famers, Bill Bunetta and Bill Lillard.
Wow.
How about that for a start, huh?
Yeah, that's a pretty solid start
not
to
bad,
the journey.
not bad.
Man, what about career path? I mean, obviously, so you started coaching young. I mean,
yes.
Your skill set's pretty wide, though. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, so.
Well, I did every job in the bowling center that there was to do when I was a kid. I went to work in the bowling center. My parents gave me a lot of latitude to stay in the bowling center because they felt it was pretty safe, and they were my second family there.
It was the same with me growing up as well. Very safe environment. Mom and dad never worried. Got
Absolutely.
on your bike and rode down there and go.
Yep. So I did all these different jobs, and I was excited to learn these different jobs, from being in the back, resurfacing wood lanes, working in the restaurant, working at the front desk, being a concourse boy, cleaning up after the leagues were over.
Mm-hmm.
All those jobs were part of what I did, and I just had a great time. And so after that, I got the coaching certification, and then I bowled in college also at Oklahoma State University. And after college, I had a chance to be involved in owning a bowling center, and I said no, and to do bigger and better things. So I got into healthcare for about 30 years.
Interesting.
Yeah. And my last 13 years were healthcare law, where we were suing doctors and hospitals. But all during this time, of course, bowling was still a passion. I still studied. It was like I was a student of the game from almost day one.
Nice.
And so I kept up with it. And there was a chance. I used to come to Kegel when it was in Sebring when it first began.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there as a student. I trained there. And I went to a couple of clinics with Marianne DeRupo and Carmen Salvino when they came down. Richard Shockley was there, Lou Marquez, Stephen Padilla. So I had a great time. It was amazing. And I said, gee, wouldn't it be wild to work for Kegel? In my mind, I said that. Never thought it would come true.
I was going to say, how did we find you? I was actually going that direction.
Yeah, I found you guys, actually. So I decided at one point in my career that, I wanted to get back in the bowling business. I kind of had that opportunity after college and missed it. And I thought, gee, if I can get back to it now, it'd be kind of cool because I love it. And so I applied for a job here, and I didn't hear much back. And then I called and did follow-up after my letter I sent in. And I'd been a member of the foundation that John Davis started from the very beginning. And when I called in, I got June Davis. And
she used to write the foundation news a lot.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
So within 15 minutes of talking to June, I had a call from Del Warren.
Wow.
And he invited me up for an interview. I spent about 6 months interviewing. I went to different venues with the group. I got to know the different people here. I came for an interview one day. It was supposed to last an hour long, and it lasted like 8 hours. And I was just like,
that's usually
it. Didn't even
usually par for the course.
Never stopped. So obviously, I was offered the job 8 years ago, and I took it, and I've loved it ever since, and never wanted to go for a second to go back to my old career.
One of the things that you're behind the scenes a lot here. Obviously, I mean, you do a lot of personal instruction for the training center. I mean, you help in a multitude of ways, and I was always very impressed by, you do a lot of public speaking. I've seen you do some pretty impressive seminars in front of people, education, concerning bowling. Let's talk students.
All right.
What levels or what age levels have you coached here? Has it been across the board?
It has. In fact, I had a gentleman from Denmark that came over a couple of years ago, and he was here visiting the United States and wanted to come and take a lesson. He had never bowled before. He was a brand new bowler, yet he signed up to come for a lesson here. So I began his lesson by teaching him basic bowling fundamentals, which is not the norm. A lot of our players they've been bowling for a few years.
They know what the foul line is.
Exactly.
Sure.
He was a brand new player and wanted to just get into the game, and that was my That's the extent. That's the extreme of my lesson on the beginner side.
Wow.
And I've always also had PBA professionals who've come to work here, and I've coached them. National teams, Team Sweden, Aruba, people from the Bahamas, and the Japan PBA. Several times I've been over here, and I really enjoyed working with them too.
Do you teach any, because I know you're pretty solid in the pro shop as well, do you teach any of the courses occasionally?
Yes, I teach the pro shop course as well. Randy Stoughton is the head guy for the pro shop course, but I've taught it several times, and I really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, because some of those countries you mentioned, sometimes they'll try to wrap up like a package. They'll come down for training and also try to get some other knowledge, obviously, from
Yeah.
you. How long have you been drilling balls, you think?
Well, I did work in a pro shop when I was a youngster, but of course the game
gap
and the bowling balls are way different than they are now.
Yeah.
So I got back into it just before I came up to work here. I had a friend who owned a pro shop in South Florida, and I worked a little bit in his shop and did some things like that. But I came here, when I first came to Kegel, I actually took the Kegel pro shop course.
That's cool.
Yeah, and
did we refund your money after we hired you?
Absolutely, you know. So I'm a Kegel pro shop graduate. Now I teach the course, which is pretty neat.
It's
also.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
It is.
What do you think was the, being out, because obviously there was a huge ball change in many of them at that time.
Yes.
What do you think was the biggest learning curve for you when you got back in with the new equipment?
I just think the layouts and learning how to match up a layout to a bowler's unique individual style, which is still the key, I think, for all pro shop professionals, to look at the bowler first. And,
instead of just saying, hey, I want this ball, and you drill them the ball and don't even know how they bowl.
Exactly. And a lot of people today still don't really understand what they need or what they want. They see someone throw a 300 game on TV with a ball and they want that ball.
Sure.
And that ball may not be quite the right one for the way they play the game, because everybody plays the game differently. So that's the big key, I think, in pro shop work today.
Very good point. What is your favorite, it may be tough, you could pick a couple. I was going to say, what is your favorite aspect about being a coach?
Well, I think it's, for me, it's kind of dispelling some of the myths in our sport that have been going on for so many, many years. Players come here and they've been taught things by their colleagues or other coaches, and sometimes that information is not kind of what's happening in the modern game. So I like to dispel those myths and kind of pass on the new information. We do a lot of bowling research here at Kegel.
Sure.
That's one of the neat things about working here is I can walk down the hallway and I'll find an expert in every area of our sport in this building somewhere, and I can ask them a question and I'll get the straight,
I fully agree.
most up-to-date answer. So I like to help people learn what's really happening in the sport based on our research today.
How about favorite female and male bowler, actually?
Well, and this is going to go back, a lot of your listeners may not realize who these people are, but I'm a big bowling history buff.
Okay.
And my two favorite bowlers, and I'm also doing this not to offend anybody in the current, because if I don't name someone in the current group,
that's
I don't
the
want
other.
to be in trouble, but Marion Ladewig
Yes.
and Don Carter. Now, I never got to meet Marion Ladewig, unfortunately, but I've certainly studied her and watched her videos and stuff, but I did get to meet the great Don Carter and spent some time with him before he passed away.
Amazing, man.
Those are my two favorite bowlers. And Don, as you may know, since he's named the same as you, he was the first athlete in any sport to get $1 million endorsement contract when bowling was really at its peak.
Most people don't know that.
Yes,
You
they
look at
don't.
things like NFL and golf, but we were the highest paid sport.
That's
in
correct.
the heyday.
Yes.
And we had #1 coverage, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting going back. I think two great examples. I mean, I had the privilege of meeting Don Carter briefly at a senior event. Never got to meet Marion, but did some reading up on her over the years, and just fascinating resumes. Both.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. Any tips that you would personally have for any player? Sometimes I'll ask for up-and-coming youth, but any player, because you coach across the board.
I do. Yeah, I've got several tips. One would be to play and develop your own style. Don't try to copy anybody else. I think watching the good players, though, is a great way to develop your skills. Watching the best of the best play.
Sure.
And now you can do it on YouTube or on the internet. But I don't think you should try to copy those people or do exactly the same thing. Everybody in our sport plays the game differently. They have a unique style that's unlike anybody else's. So I think that's the key, is to develop your own style and not copy someone else.
That's great advice because, you know, I mean, I look back even when I was bowling and there was just so many textbooks, like everybody was trying to make you this way.
Yes.
And our bodies are different. I've always noticed, you know, on the outside looking in when I'm watching all of you down there coaching different people, that you're not necessarily coming in and totally changing them per se. You're working with what they have,
Exactly.
have got, and what they might be physically capable of doing.
Yeah, a lot of players, when they come here, don't know what their strengths are. They have a list of things they want to fix, but they're not really aware of what their strengths are. And I think it's very important in a lesson to make sure someone identifies and can see their individual strengths. You know, look at a lot of the top bowlers on the tour right now, like Norm Duke and Walter Ray, play to their strengths. They may not be the highest rev players, but they have other strengths that really have enabled them to be champions for a long, long time. And so I think that's something that any bowler needs to know, is what are my strengths as well as the areas that I want to improve in.
Very good advice, very good advice. Out of all the things you utilize in the training center, because obviously we've got a lot of cool technology and different ways to teach people to get better at bowling, what is one of your top things that you use when you're on deck coaching down there?
Well, the video system, for one, is huge, because when you see what's happening for real versus what you feel, that's a big eye-opener for most players.
Sure.
So we have a great video system here that takes front, side, and back videos, and the front video is so revealing sometimes. You see a change in expression that indicates there's tension during the delivery. You can see that in someone's face expression sometimes, and they've never been aware of that. I had a player a few years ago, a young boy, who started with bowling with a heavy ball, heavier than he should have probably started with. And during his approach, his father brought him here because he was not able to hit targets and be consistent. And during his approach, he actually closed his eyes about on the second step and never opened them until after the ball was past the arrows.
Wow.
And he had no idea that his eyes were closed the whole time during delivery. And if I hadn't had that front video, I would never have known it as well.
And you wouldn't have convinced him.
Exactly. I wouldn't have convinced him, his dad. So once we saw that was the issue, in 5 minutes I had him watching his target. Wow. And he had this big smile on his face afterwards, because he now was hitting the target and the ball was going in the pocket. And it was simply a matter of, you know, when he was throwing the heavy ball, he used every bit of his energy to throw it, and that energy caused him to kind of just clamp his eyes shut, and he never saw the target. So I still have that video, and I use it sometimes to teach down there because that was such an interesting and revealing front video.
I got to imagine y'all got a pretty cool library.
We do.
Stuff like that to be able to show people and kind of do comparisons with.
We have the biggest video library of top professionals and top amateurs in the world.
Wow.
And every time we have a team come, like this summer we had Team Sweden come here, we get more videos of those players. So we just keep building our library. And to me, pretty much our whole teaching philosophy here is based on watching the best players in the world and slowing their motion down in slow motion and just analyzing every aspect of their game. That's
hopefully you didn't get a video of Team Sweden kicking our ass when we bowled against them at that tournament. But Kegel did not come ahead on that one.
Well, you know, they came over here for one specific purpose, because we have lanes that are adjustable, and they wanted to bowl on different topography. And our lanes are the only place in the world where that can be done. So that was a big draw for them to come over here and do that, and it really opened their eyes to how powerful topography is, which is another area of research that Kegel has led the way on.
I was measuring lanes by hand with a dial indicator and gauges back in the 90s on tour before we had the mapper and everything for John, and we were trying to figure out, you know, why the invisible enemy, you know, essentially.
Yes.
Rick, it has been fantastic talking with you, buddy.
Thank you for having me on the show,
my friend. And listen, you keep doing a great job down there and educating the masses. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to chat with you all today. Keep those wrenches turning. Have a wonderful day.